Hi there, my name is Michael C. Bryan, and I'm an awakener, and I am based out of West Hollywood, California. This is one of the first videos I want to put up on YouTube as I gesticulate with my hands. I was born and raised in Seattle, but I spent over half my life in New York City, so I swear by osmosis and by marriage, I am part Jewish and I am part Italian. I wanted to put this video up because everybody always said, oh, YouTube, it's got to be perfect video and flawless audio. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's bring it down a little bit. I wanted to put the first one up. This is going to be the beginning. We're going to have more cameras, more lights. It's going to be fabulous. But for now, I wanted to put this up because I wanted to share. I was really driven to do this. I wanted to share with my work as a professional awakener. Now, I'll explain what that is in a moment. But, this work that I've been doing for 12 years professionally with my LLC, I moved to Los Angeles from New York City almost 4 years ago, and I had started it out there. And before I began my career as a awakener in New York, for years I was a special assistant to CEOs in corporate America. I worked with some celebrities. I worked with a lot of leaders, and I was always the guy that they would come to with problems. And it made sense based upon my life that they would do that. But I spent years as sort of the focal point between management and between employees and between leaders and other people. And I was always like the guy that helped people figure out how to communicate. But more importantly, I was always the one that helped them figure out more of who they were, because I struggled with that for a number of years. Now, before we begin, and before you roll your third eye at me when I say I'm an awakener, this is why I call myself an awakener. This channel is called Wake Up with Michael, because we are all of us right now, at the end of 2024, it's been a hell of a year. Whether you have a lot of money or you don't have a lot of money, where you have good health or no health, whether you're in a career you love or you have no idea why you're in the career you're in, whatever these reasons are, we are all going through something right now, and I hear it all the time from all of us. While many people, especially in Los Angeles, put up a beautiful front, and I do think that's a little bit of that toxic positivity that's shoved into our faces, as if negative emotions aren't a good thing. By the way, you're going to learn from me the law of attraction stuff. I do think it's real, and I do think energy is real. However, I don't think that you always have to be in a good mood, and you always have to keep your vibration high, and otherwise you're not going to hear source energy. I think that's a little old school now, and I think we spent enough years hearing all this stuff. I'm going to tell you what I've learned talking with real people in real situations, in real life, going through some incredibly fucked up but amazing stuff, what they've taught me about myself and about being a human being. And the number one thing is we are very complex. I don't need to tell you this. You can't break us down into personality disorders. You can't break us down into depressives and people that have anxiety disorder. You can't break us down into categories, because we as a species refuse to do that. We are very, very, very complex. There are many things to us. And the reason I say that is when I tell you on this channel what I do and want to share with you certain topics and certain things, and today is going to be about boundaries, a huge thing for me, a huge thing for everyone I work with, definitely something in the zeitgeist that we're all talking about constantly. I'm going to tell you what I've learned talking with people and hearing about their lives. It's going to be what I've gone through, of course, because I've got my lens. But really, I'm going to tell you what people have struggled with for a very long time. So here's the bottom line. I think I said bottom line earlier. This is going to happen a lot. By the way, fires are burning horribly in Malibu right now. And I'm from New York, so I can't breathe because of the wet air. So I'm going to have a big water bottle here. It's not very, I think it's fabulous. The woman that made this, I saw her today. She goes, it's her favorite one. She handmade this water bottle. Isn't it great? This fits my personality. I'm very serious about the work. This stuff is very sacred. And also, I carry around a disco water bottle. Go figure. See? Complex. Oh, love a Celsius. I don't care what my former trainer says. They're great. I'm an awakener. And I help people understand their emotional life and help them figure out themselves and who they are and why they're here. Boundaries has always been a big thing. Now, here's why boundaries is basically my meat and potatoes in this work, because I was raised with no boundaries. Years ago, there was a client, I love this guy, and we don't work together anymore. And we were on and off for a number of years. He was hot and cold with the work. To change and truly look at yourself requires the same kind of regimen. You've heard this all before from, guys in baseball caps screaming at you on YouTube, and I don't listen to them either anymore. I used to. It's like, stop yelling at me about, being more disciplined and rigorous. I get it, okay? You don't have to keep screaming it. But the truth of the matter is, like at the gym, you can't get in shape unless you go to the gym. This work requires a dedication and commitment because it's hard. And honestly, I think it's supposed to be hard. Otherwise, we'd all do it. We'd all have the benefits. But the benefits don't just come. They come when we put the work in. So this guy wasn't really committed to it. A couple times in the meeting, he would fall asleep. He was a busy finance guy, so I get it. But his wife, one day, when they were going to pay an invoice, she said to him, "Why are you working with him?" She's talking about me. She said, "He's not a therapist. He's not a licensed clinician. He doesn't have a PhD. And he's written a book about how his mother abused him and how he was kicked out at 14 when they found out he was gay and became a child prostitute." All true. She goes, "Why would you want to work with someone like that?" Now, this was years ago. So back then, I was ashamed about that, right? I thought, she's right. Like, I don't have the qualifications. I didn't spend, 10 years at Columbia or NYU or Stanford making sure I got that precious PhD after my name, which is fine. PhD is wonderful. I know a lot of PhDs. They live in their head, a lot of them. Not everyone. I'm not going to generalize on here. I hate generalizations, but it is kind of true. And so I felt like a fraud, right? But then now, today, I'm like, that's the very reason you want to work with me and listen to me. Because I understand suffering. I was a 14-year-old gay kid working the streets of Seattle as a prostitute. And let me tell you, the fact I survived that is just shocking to me. I never got HIV. I never got any STDs. And I did stuff that nobody should ever do, especially a child. Also, I was molested as a young boy. I mean, my history is astounding when you hear it. And I will, to respect boundaries, I will sprinkle it into the videos coming up. But suffice to say, the very things that she thought were working against me are actually, I've realized now, working for me. And, the reason I'm not a therapist, and I never wanted to go that route, therapy and talk therapy is a very revered thing for a very good reason. It's nice to know someone gives a fuck listening to you, that they're hearing you. But I did find the model for me. And I have a therapist in Jersey I still connect to now and then. He's known me for decades. I do find that with therapy, it takes a long time. And you keep talking about the same stuff, which I understand is part of the thing. Now, not all therapists are like this. Before anybody goes into me generalizing, I will say that the mode of therapy is wonderful for working through some deep sort of stuff. And I know there's many different modalities of therapy, many different. I'm not a coach. I'm not a therapist. I'm an awakener. Sometimes people call me a mentor. Now, what awakener means, I'm helping people come into a state of rabid consciousness. Like, I demand presence when I work with people. I help people get out of their head and into the present moment, because the idea in a lot of like higher end mindset and coaching stuff, that thoughts create your reality, it's true to a degree. And by the way, when it comes to the law of attraction, and if your vibration's not high and you're not going to attract what you want, I got to tell you, I think a lot of the people talking about this on YouTube, they mean well, but it lacks any sort of grist, any sort of texture. I mean, these reductive ideas, they have to be in a good mood, then you can hear source energy, then you know exactly what to do, and all the money will come flooding into your life when you realize your purpose. I'm sorry, that's so reductive. There's no way we have thousands of years of philosophy and art and poetry and music, and we can say that that's how the human condition operates. It's much more complex than that. We're not just a matter of keeping your vibration high, and then you're going to be in a great place where law of attraction suddenly kicks in. No, it's much more complex than that. And that's one thing I want to bring to this channel, and talking with you and engaging with you and hopefully hearing from you, is to empower you to challenge these precepts in today's consciousness, spirituality, self-help, mindset, new thought, whatever the fuck somebody's calling it. how to be a human being in the real world, a real world that's filled with saints and sinners. Okay? God may live in all of us, but some of us are fucking assholes. We just are. And when I say that in the very precious sort of self-help and spirituality and God is love, they're acting as if I don't know God is love. Of course I know God is love. But I also live in a world where people forget that, so they're assholes, they're selfish, they're greedy, they're all about me, right? I help people who are living in those worlds live in those worlds as someone who is choosing, who am I allowing into my life? Who do I want to be around? Who do I understand myself to be? I always tell people, like the person you are when you walk into a room or into an engagement or into a relationship, and like the person you are when you walk out of it. I want you to like you. I mean, honestly, I care what you think about other people, but not nearly as much as I care what you think about me. Because the more you live life, and I'm 60, the more people will project their shit all over you because they're working over all that stuff, and it's got nothing to do with you. The greatest thing I heard not too long ago, well, probably at this point because time's speeding up as you get older, which I really love, was nothing is personal. So if someone's got a problem with you and they come at you and just come at you with their stuff, like, why'd you do? And it's never about you. It's about them working through their stuff. They're going to say it's you, but it's not. It's never, ever, ever personal. Now, the topic for today, boys and girls, as the homosexual Mr. Rogers I can be with, by the way, a disco water bottle, which I'm going to drink from. I'm very serious in this work. I take this work very seriously. It's very sacred to me. It's a calling. I never thought it would be. But I also am a man who has a disco water bottle. So, you know, we're all complex. I got to drink this. They got fires in Malibu. You can barely breathe. It's terrible. Oh, God, I do love a good Celsius. My former trainer's like, it's terrible for your gut. Sure, whatever. But I do love caffeine. Drugs are terrible. Well, not all drugs. I used to smoke a lot of weed. It doesn't work anymore. You know, you get older, you're like, caffeine, though. I like caffeine. Boundaries. Now, the reason I want to talk about boundaries is I had a call with a client today, an amazing client. And this beautiful person, you know, they were like me. The reason they hired me was because we both had a wild past. I was very abused by my mother. Mother was abusive. She had borderline personality disorder. She took her life. I'll racket down the information so you don't feel overwhelmed, because, you know, this is something I'm told a lot, that, you know, I'm too forthright. I'm too direct. I have to edit myself. I scare people off. Less is more. How do you really feel? My whole life. And so I love people like that. Those are my people. I understand how difficult it is for them to live in a world that wants them this sort of watered down version for their comfort, which is necessary. And we'll talk about that. You can't just bleh over people, you know, otherwise you have to hand out like monogram splatter guards, which isn't a bad idea. I want you to understand the context of boundaries with what I can offer and what this person I was talking about. So she was very abused by her family when she was younger in ways that are unimaginable, and I'm not going to go into detail. I was molested as a very young boy, and at 14, I was a homeless child prostitute on the streets of Seattle because my parents had kicked me out when they found out that I was gay. So I've been through the ringer of it. So I was raised with no boundaries. So when I got older, I was very confused at all the boundaries people like demanded. And demand is a word I'm not a big fan of nowadays, because what happens when you demand something out of someone? They're just going to dig their feet in and do the opposite. We're mixing up the words nowadays. But you know, boundaries are things that I was not raised with. This person I work with was not raised with, because we just want to get to the truth. We can't stand this constant veiling, this constant, you know, a big thing in today's world, of course, is toxic positivity. This idea that good vibes only, as if the negative vibes aren't actually beneficial and grist and things to create from. You're not going to hear it from me. I don't really buy the whole singular view of the reductive law of attraction talk, which I've studied forever, that you have to have a good vibration. You have to be in a good mood. You can only have good vibes. Otherwise, you're not going to hear a source energy. You're going to negatively attract things in your life. You're not gonna really, be who you are. I'm told to shine my light. Well, my light has lots of colors in it, not just one light. Blah! I don't believe in toxic positivity, because what it says is, when people are demanding that you always be in a good mood around them, or that the law of attraction, people say you always have to be in a good mood, that's because they're unable in themselves to see the benefit of the negative emotions in them. Negative emotions are not bad. It's more like when you feel that rush of negative emotion, which we all do because we're complex beings. We're not just one reductive, feel positive all the time person. When you feel that complex thing, instead of taking that emotion of anger, frustration, and rage is a big thing nowadays, you don't direct it at people and aren't destructive. You instead put it towards creative things. You clean the house, you write the emails, you make the videos, you do whatever you need to do. But you're never going to hear me say this law of attraction, spirituality, new thought, new movement sort of thing where people shame you into always being in a good mood all the time. That's not being a human being that's productive. So, boundaries. So I was raised with no boundaries. So as an adult, I had to learn in ways that I never thought I would, that everybody has very complex boundaries to them. And because I just didn't like playing this game that is necessary in society, where you've got to, less is more. It's not that you can't be forthright and direct with people, but it scares people because they don't feel safe around you. Now, I'm going to say this. It's not our job to make anyone feel safe. And I have always found the term safe space cringy, and I don't know why. It just sounds like all these new words we're all trying to find nowadays to describe what we're going through. I'm not trying to be a jerk about that. I just think we should look at the fact that there's no such thing as a safe space. What that is saying, though, is that if people feel that we respect them, and people feel that we're not mean, because my mother was mean, so she was very mean with her boundaries. If we're not mean, if we're kind, but we're also aware that many people, when they project their need for boundaries on us, they're not always doing it from a loving place. Then we can start to work with what boundaries are about. See, the core basis of a lot of this work I do, this world, for a lot of people, it's about love, compassion, and God is love. God is love in the fact that a lot of people have forgotten, that they have access to this light inside of them. So a lot of people, they're assholes. They are. It's not to say that they're not inside beautiful, but on the outside, they're jerks. So I work with people who are trying to be kind and compassionate themselves and to other people, but there are going to be people that are going to manipulate you, going to lie to you, they're going to work you over, they're going to throw their stuff all over you. And to live in a world right now where we're all greatly suffering, because the end of 2024, look, you can be either rich or you can be poor. You can be in great shape, in shitty shape. You can either be in the career of your dreams or wonder why the hell you're even doing what you're doing. We're all in an upside down place right now. All of us are. And what we're trying to find is purchase. And when you work with people with boundaries, when you're helping them try to understand what boundaries are about, if you're the kind of person like me who was born and raised in a family where there were no boundaries, you end up becoming a truth sayer. You want to just get to the bottom line. You don't like small talk, and you can pretty much see with people if they're hiding. You can see if they're showing you just the persona. You can see the ego battles. So what I always say to people is, if you're unsure in a situation, if there is a boundary that you're crossing or something you're not clear about, you don't need to get into the verbiage that everybody does. Is like, so I'm asking, is this a boundary that I'm crossing? You don't have to be so literal. What I would say is you say to people, hey, is it cool if I say that? Can I ask that? Or you start a conversation by saying, so I want to ask you this, and just tell me if it's too personal. I say personal a lot, and that works. I was with an Uber driver the other day, and he was talking about this amount of money and this amount of money, and everybody's so ashamed about money. They won't talk about money, of course. And so at one point, he told me how much his car cost. And I said, because I've been trained to think this way, because I don't think this way, but I said, is it too personal to ask you what your car payments are? And he said to me, yes, it's too personal. And And he got quiet and uncomfortable. And I said to him, I really appreciate that. And suddenly we're okay again. It's like people expect us to sort of figure out what their boundaries are, but we have to ask them what their boundaries are. Now, I'm going to say this about boundaries too. If you have people in your life that have tons of boundaries and they're always like having this boundary, that boundary, this boundary, that boundary, you got to ask yourself, because there was someone I knew recently, this person was always bringing something up. It was always something. It was always some sort of boundary, some sort of thing. And frankly, they turned out to be more trouble than they were worth, because I was like, I can't, you keep moving the mark and you keep having all these things come up. Those people are a lot of work. And if you feel they're worth spending time with, then you should spend time with them. But if they keep like endless stuff, they're always going to be like that, aren't they? Choose the people that match up with your version of boundaries. Me, I work best with people who are very direct, very forthright, get to the bottom line, just like to cut to the chase. People that don't like to play games, they're not working people over. A big thing in Los Angeles, of course, is everyone's very transactional here, and they're unconsciously looking at everyone as a means to an end. So I like people that just say, that's not what I'm about. This is what I want. Please don't do that. This is great. I like people who swear. That's a sign of intelligence, according to a Harvard study. I get along with those people. I don't get along with people that are very mannered, that need to control people with their boundaries, that are wildly conservative. We just don't get along because I'm pretty wild. At the same time, I have boundaries about being respectful for other people's space, being aware how our actions affect other people. I've got to stick up my ass about that. I can't stand when people just do things and not think about how it affects people. I don't understand people who stand in the middle of the street and text when there's people trying to get around them. I don't understand those people. Like, where are you? They're not, because, they're all about them. Choose the people that have a definition of boundaries that fits into your definition of boundaries. And I would say if a couple of times they call you out for a few things that you don't have, but in your gut, that's actually probably a good boundary and I need to be more respectful of that, decide if they're the kind of person you should spend time with. There was a very well-known person here. I'm an actor and a writer. I used to think being an actor and a writer mitigated the awakening work I do. No, they actually feed each other. People tried to separate them for years. I'm like, no, you're wrong. They're actually intertwined together. This person said to me, I said, a lot of people in the industry, I felt ghosted by them. They would say, tell me about yourself. And I would always joke, careful what you ask for, like this person did. So I told them. And then they pulled me aside. See, Malibu. They pulled me aside, this person. And they said, the reason why people ghost you sometimes in the industry is you scare them. And you don't know when to shut up. And your ego's fighting for attention. And you need validation. They told me all this. And, they weren't very kind about it. They were very direct, which is fine. But I had to sit for a long time and say, okay, that information was great, right? They were honest. Do I want to spend time with a person that's like that, though, who's not really kind about it? Because basically I was threatening probably in some way to them. They said they cared about me. They hardly knew me. But I listened, and I decided to go ahead and spend more time with that person because I was intrigued at how honest they were, because I prefer honesty mixed with some kindness, but really honesty, bottom line, more than anything. And so that's my people. Decide your boundaries, decide your people. And I'm going to add a little note here about boundaries. Boundaries are absolutely necessary in this world because it shows that we respect someone else. And today we are at a very bizarre place where we're not connecting to ourselves and we're not connecting to other people. We do everything we can to deflect really connecting. We don't want to see other people and we don't want to try to see the world through their eyes. Now, I personally think primarily our job is to not inordinately try to get in someone else's skin and understand how they see the world. That's a nice thing to do. But I do feel our job is to see ourselves and ask ourselves what our opinion is of ourselves, Because what happens is when we do that, we naturally care about other people. We're naturally respectful to those other people. So, in conclusion, you're going to learn here. I'm like some of the spiritual teachers, and I don't want to call myself a spiritual teacher. I'm like some of the people on YouTube. I realize many people adore a bullet point list. I come from a family of academics. They just love in the head stuff. I love circular discussions that talk about things that matter, like conversations about these things. But you're not going to hear me put on the screen here, here's action 1, 2, 3, 4. Everyone does that. And while I understand that we want action items and bullet point lists, the human condition is much more complex than that. And I think engaging with each other, as we're going to do here, about how difficult it is to connect with someone else after we've connected with ourselves, sense from them what their boundaries are, and then ask, is that too personal? I think that's a real art form. I'm going to add this at the end here, and then I should probably wrap it up because I could talk forever. I came out of my mother just going, hey, Chatty, nice cold room. I want you to also decide with me that you're not going to really spend time with people who give you a lot of shit and shame you for when you do cross a boundary. I've had people come at me pretty strong when I cross a boundary, and I'm like, well, how could I have known if you didn't tell me? And then they would throw back in a passive aggressive way, well, you should just know. And I'm like, no, I shouldn't. It's not my job. You can't mind read anybody, right? So it's our job to tell people what our boundaries are. At the same time, if you're someone like me who likes to explode boundaries sometimes and move the line, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to cross the line. Now, personally, I'm okay with that because I'd rather tell the truth. I'd rather be forthright. I'd rather get to the bottom of it. A lot of people can't go there. They want things surface. They want good vibes only. They want that toxic positivity thing because in their mind, that's how it works as being a human. My experience working with spectacular people is we all suffer in silence, and then we all project on everybody something that we're trying to do, which is I don't want to see that negative side of you because I don't want to see that in myself. You hear a lot of stand-up comics do this. I've done some stand-up comedy. You've heard a lot of stand-up comics say, when I ask somebody how you are and they say, well, I'm having a bad day, they joke, the comedian, and goes, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear great. So we all laugh in the audience, and it's funny, but at the same time, they're right. See, choose the people that you're going to show the real essence of you to, because most people are so engaged in their own life and lost in their own life, they don't want to hear it. Now, I know that sounds cold. I know it sounds cold, and the last thing I want you to do on this channel is to harden your heart, as the great 80s song goes, and we are kind of hardening a little bit now. But don't be surprised if when you open up and when you open up some of your boundaries and try to share with them, you're not getting a receptive audience. They're just not your people. And don't take it personal. Usually if someone can't go there with you, it's because they can't go there with themselves. It's got nothing to do with you. It's got everything to do with them. But I do say risk it. Be more of your version of forthright and direct. Ask them, is it personal? Oh, look at that. I am doing the bullet points. Boy, I've been trained well by social media, haven't I? And at the bottom line is I want you to like who you are when you go in the world. I want you to like the person you are in the room. If you can't stand the bullshit schmooze, the fake thing, if you are being yourself, and if you're like me, you get people that kind of sit like this and look back at you like this, even if you're holding it down, that's just who they are. They're just, more conservative, more withdrawn. That's all about them. Don't take it personally, and don't give yourself a bad time. If you're a very forthright and direct and truth-telling person, the world wants it, but the world is frightened of it. And in relationship, the world really wants us to slow our roll, go slower than we might want to go. But I don't want you to not love the side of yourself that likes to get to the bottom line. If you're like me, someone who plays with boundaries. And if you're someone who's very conservative and their boundaries are very firm and set, I would strongly suggest that you stay away from certain circles that like to blow up boundaries, because they're just going to piss you off. You're going to get into a fight. Neither is good nor bad. All is just the human condition. And I really do, with the people I've met over the years and worked with, and I talk with a lot of people about being human. The reason I call this Wake Up with Michael is we have to wake up to the experience of living in a world where we are, this is very overused, being our true self. And being our true self is very challenging. And there's a famous quote, I think it's Oscar Wilde, to be yourself in a world that demands you to be what they want you to be is the hardest task there is. It may not be Oscar Wilde, but it's true. There's that demand word again, right? Charged word, ego. We'll talk a lot about ego, by the way. Social media is all about ego. I always tell people on social media, everybody's got a little bonfire. If you say anything about anyone posting anything that's not completely supportive and even tries to draw attention to where you see discord, you're flicking a piece of gas, like one little droplet of gasoline on the fire, it'll blow up in your face. You can't do it right now. People are ready to be enraged because we have forgotten that we're all connected. So we have to wake up out of this dream that we're disconnected and that we're all connected. This massive disparaging sort of thing about consciousness is just incredible. And we all know it right now, which is why we're having a hard time. That's why I come here, to wake up to the fact that we're all connected, to wake up to the experience of all of our true selves, the very messy and the very correct, I guess. What would that? Clean? Well, yeah, I could go a long time about that. We are everything all at once. And in a world where the projection is always so pretty and shiny and, good vibes only stuff exclusively, we forget that the human condition is supposed to be a complex mix of all those emotions all at once. We're all the colors all at once, right? So, all right, my name is Michael C. Bryan. This probably went a hell of a lot longer than I probably intended, but, there you go. I hope you continue to join me on this journey. I'll be posting at least once a week. And I'll see you soon. What's that really obnoxious? What's that thing? What is that? I can't stand that. I'm just going to drink from my water bottle while I say bye.